Hey everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to our Facebook Live tonight. It's just me, no guest. I'm just coming on to make sure that everyone is fully aware that we are having a conference, a housing conference to discuss the Residential and Tenancy Act, the Landlord and Tenant Board, the municipal policies and procedures, and government housing and the government programs. So, we're going to be hosting this event in Cambridge on October 1st. We are providing our guests with dinner. So, you have a choice between chicken and fish. And if you do have a different diet, just give me a call and I might be able to work it so that we make sure that you're getting fed, because you can't think and learn what we're going to be teaching everyone at the conference on an empty stomach, right? So I wanted to do I'll talk more about the conference, who our guest speakers are, our sponsors a little bit, but I wanted to make sure that I'm giving everyone an opportunity to jump on and do a Q&A. I think I've been watching all the groups, especially Ontario Landlords Watch group, lots of questions, a lot of situations where they just don't know what to do. And a lot of our problems can be avoided if you are just getting ourselves into management of that type of tenant. So if you have any questions or you're going through a certain tenant situation right now, hit the StreamYard link so I can see it. Sometimes if you're just commenting on Facebook, I may not be able to see it until after the live happens. So I want to be able to see how many people I can help here today, because I know I'm helping everyone on the phone, messages, emails, joining them with their hearing, just to make sure that they are completely protected against this broken system that we have. So if you have a question, just put it into the chat there. Just click the StreamYard link, or you can go on YouTube. YouTube works very better. It's amazing. I love YouTube. So make sure you pop over to the Ontario Landlords Watch YouTube channel and have your situation and see if I can help you with. But in the meantime, as we are waiting for people to type in their situations, I want to tell you about a couple of phone calls that have happened that landlords have called upon. So one, I would love to have this landlord come on a Facebook Live to talk about his situation, but he's trying to bring his tenant to the Landlord and Tenant Board because she is taking bricks off of the property and eating them. And now we understand that this is obviously a mental health situation, but with the bricks that are falling off of the property, well, you know what's happening? Yeah, someone's going to get hurt. The bricks are falling on a major traffic area in the downtown core. And we are seeing, a potential people dying, for the concept of eating bricks. And with the Landlord and Tenant Board trying to get a hearing, this landlord has been waiting over 7 months in order to have this type of case being brought to an adjudicator to issue an eviction on what he would hope to be an eviction. But sadly, he's still waiting to have his hearing. He's going to have it in October. And I'm hoping to be a part of that with him to give him some guidance and to try to be there for support, because everyone knows this industry, we don't have enough support for landlords. And that's why I created Ontario Landlords Watch, so that we were able to help one another, guide them through the process, navigate through the system, and be able to, become a stronger community, because we have a lot of different regulations that are coming. And I think all of us need to be prepared for that and to advocate for that. And that brings back of why I'm doing the conference, in order to discuss all these housing issues, to talk to housing solutions, but also to teach all the other landlords how to advocate and what to do and how to do it. We just had a recent a meeting with the staff of my MPP and informing them about the conference, trying to get them to come and to listen. We don't need you to talk. It's not going to be we're going to get you to answer all these questions. We just need you to listen, because this issue of housing, it's an iceberg. It's a huge iceberg. And unfortunately, our elected officials are just looking at things from the top. They're not seeing everything that's on the bottom. They understand that they need to encourage supply, but if they're not protecting the supply that we're currently losing, because our landlords are skipping out of Ontario, going into our friends in Alberta, Harry Mackenzie from the Alberta landlord community. And then we're going to be getting into Costa Rica. They're in the Florida. There's multiple different places in the world that they can invest their money. We have to give them a reason why they need to stay here in Ontario. And a 1.2% or a 2.5% is definitely not allowing them to stay in Ontario. It's actually pushing them out even further, not to mention the landlord and tenant board. Now, most of you must have seen that they're going to start issuing orders from the bench, which is exciting, something that they used to do. I don't know why they stopped, but they're going to do some applications from the bench when you're having your hearing, as long as you have your tenant's email address and the landlord has their email address, they'll issue the judgment or the order through email. So my advice to our landlords is making sure that the landlords are getting their tenants to sign that area on the standard lease to state that their way of communicating is email. And I like to go a little further. There's a consent by email form that you can get on the Ontario Landlords Watch website. And that will be another cushioning just to say that we both have agreement to be able to communicate by email. So get that consent by email form and get your tenants to sign that before you hand over your keys to the tenant as well. And always keep up on the tenant. I'll ask them every 3 months, has your email changed? Have that documentation to show that you're updating your tenant to say, hey, is there any email changes that I should be aware of? They say, no, this is the current one. Then we should be rocking and rolling. Now, the next step is to advocate for having us, the landlords or property managers, be able to serve N4 applications by email. If you can get your judgment by email, we would like to be able to get our applications by email as well, just so that we can understand that it's 2022 and we should be able to send some documentation by email, especially if you have that, the recipient was able to confirm that they have received that type of document. But there's lots more work that needs to be done at the landlord and tenant board besides just issuing judgments from the bench. We want to be able to try to give them some ideas on how to streamline non-payment of rent. Over 80% of the applications at the landlord and tenant board are for non-payment of rent. And, when you have the province issuing $19 million to address the backlog at the Ontario Landlords Tribunal as an Ontario Land Tribunal, come on, guys, we're wasting some money here. What is going on here? We're dealing with people who are with non-payment of rent. And this is, as much as our adjudicators, and we're getting many of them in order to hear the cases, we still have the problem that they're not issuing good judgments, and we need to be able to speed up that process. I don't think a hearing should be taking as long as it is, especially when the evidence is sent into the landlord and tenant board a week prior. We should be able to have our adjudicators prepared to have 10 minutes for the landlord, 10 minutes for the tenants, and any questions that the adjudicator may have in order to have that type of judgment. And that's why I was hoping the portable housing, the portal was going to help with that in order to have a very much of a deep dialogue of that relationship, because that's, I think, is what's missing at the landlord and tenant board. There shouldn't be one hearing for an N4, another hearing for an N5 on the same tenant. And in order to have your applications combined, that could actually delay the process of getting your hearing. So a lot of landlords are like, okay, I'll just take my first chance and we'll just do the N4 instead of getting yourself into the delay at the landlord and tenant board by combining your applications. So hopefully you guys find that as a little bit of a tip, just to let you guys know where I'm for my area alone. And I hope to encourage all of you, if you're there's a municipal election that's going to be happening. And it's really important that you reach out to all of the candidates, get their concept of housing, get their concept on different policies and procedures that are going to be implemented to deal with this type of housing crisis. And here's a new one for you guys. The Region of Waterloo has now came out in the newspaper to discuss that the encampments, homeless encampments in the middle of a parking lot, this is now a form of housing, and they want it to be ran by a private or by the region, so by a third party, in order to accommodate, these housing encampments that are popping up everywhere. So this is showing the direness of our situation. And I think as small to mid-sized landlords, we're a part of the solution. We are definitely a part of the solution in order to create supply. But when the Residential Intensive Act and the Landlord and Tenant Board is just restricting the development, restricting landlords from being able to collect funds that are due to them without any means of trying to be able to collect from the tenants. They just keep doing it. We have to prevent the professional tenants who are abusing the system, and we need to alleviate the backlog at the landlord and tenant board so landlords are able to have their cases heard relatively quickly. But it shouldn't be about non-payment of rent, and it really shouldn't be about the for personal use, the N12 application. When you know the punishment, it's 50,000 for an individual, 250,000 for a corporation if you're caught doing an unlawful eviction. You're signing an affidavit to state that you plan to move into the unit for a full year, or your family member or the new buyer. Why is it having to have a hearing date? So if you agree with me or not, put it in the comments. I know we have Jen and Arthur there. They're able to jump on, and I can see their comments coming in there, so which is great. I'm still working the StreamYard, guys. I'm not a techie person. I just know I'm more of a telephone and talk to as many landlords as I possibly can throughout the month. But we do have to give better ideas to streamline this approach, just because if a landlord is at the landlord and tenant board dealing with non-payment of hearing or non-payment of rent, we're now alleviating, like, there's no spots available now for the tenants who could be dealing with a slum landlord. So we need to really create a balance in order to really protect the housing supply. And in order to protect the housing supply, we need to give more protection to the housing providers who are screaming at the rooftops, and they can't ignore it. It's in every article that you can see. If you Google Ontario landlords, you will see multiple articles where a realtor is now housing his client because he can't take over possession of his house. Talking to another realtor, he said that he's going to make room on his couch because this is now a norm where so many landlords are not being able to take possession of their homes. So we have to really create that balance in order to really protect the housing supply. So Tammy said New Brunswick does not have hearings. Ontario needs to follow their lead. Whoa, New Brunswick. I've been following Alberta, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. You should see their fees. Oh my God. Like, we pay $186 up to $201 for an application. And sometimes in Newfoundland, it's like $25, if I'm not mistaken, unless they put their prices up. But it's like, how come it's cheaper there and still, like, we're paying an arm and a leg and still not getting the service that we deserve? But we'll have to continue to keep advocating on that. The New York, they have people at the office who contact this. This is what I'm talking about. So if you have an application, you're bringing it in for non-payment of rent. Let's say that you have a landlord who's like, okay, I have to file now. You're not communicating with me, or, you're not being able to make your end of the bargain. Having the paperwork just being brought to the landlord and tenant board, and having a dispute resolution officer to say, hey, we just got an application from your landlord about non-payment of rent. Can we work a payment agreement right now? If we can't, when do you see yourself being able to make payment? And have the dispute resolution officer be able to say, okay, do we have someone who's really struggling to pay rent here, or do we have someone who is abusing the system? So that's what I would like to kind of work myself into, using these dispute resolution officers a little bit more than what we use our adjudicators with. Adjudicators having like $110,000 salary, we can get 2 dispute resolution officers for the same price. So I'm thinking there might be a nice way to kind of see that. Tammy's on a roll tonight. Tenant doesn't pay the first. If tenant doesn't pay on the first, sheriff comes on the 17th and evicts you. Oh, come on. You're going to make everyone cry here, and they're selling their properties, Tammy. Calm down. I'm already getting like that with Alberta. That's why a lot of our landlords are reaching out to our friends in Alberta. But you get to see there's many different ways. And what I can see Ontario following is the way BC is. And BC is not happy in the way that they have their system right now. Tammy says that she's she said, guess where I've been buying. So we got another diamond in the rough there, guys. So you're going to be able to check out what's happening in New Brunswick. I was wanting a place by the water, Tammy. Thank you so much for the comment. I'm gonna see if we can get someone from BC on the channel so that they can give us a hands-on experience of of sharing their stories of what's happening in New Brunswick. I know a lot of people have definitely have moved to Nova Scotia, and is definitely has invested in Nova Scotia just because of their rules and procedures and how it is. But they're under fire as well. You know, the whole cap on rent increases. It's it's not the greatest. Like, I don't know why they think that putting a cap is going to protect the tenants. Instead, it's just really pushing landlords to say, okay, now my kids need to move out of the house. They need a place to live, or I'm going to sell it, and that new owner is going to want to move into it. And that's my main mission to, talking with the elected officials, telling them that, landlords are leaving Ontario, they're taking it over for their own personal use. They don't want to be landlords anymore. And instead, we should be trying to encourage our empty nesters, hey, rent out your basement. And you can, say you're allowed, go ahead, rent out your basement. But if the Residential and Tenancy Act and Landlord and Tenant Board stays status quo, they're not going to want to rent out their basement. Instead, it's going to fear them to not rent out their basement. So how else are you supposed to fix the problem? Because as taxpayers, we're paying $3,000 a month to house one person in emergency shelter. We're costing, I think it was over 10 million with the programs of the encampment that they're going to be having to use in order to. It's like putting a band-aid on a bullet wound, and that's my opinion. It's just to the point where they're not reaching out to the small landlords, people who it's always just the developers. And I love our developers, because without our developers, we wouldn't be able to, get the properties that we're currently buying. But we do have some infill that we can work with. We just need better programs. I know the region of Waterloo, they have different programs where they would give you, I believe it's $25,000 to create a secondary suite. And if you look at the fine print and having your property being under 500,000, and you have to, keep it in a contract for so many years, and you can only raise the rent to this amount. No, it's not appetizing for the investors who are not trying to completely get rich. Everyone thinks that the landlords are getting rich, and it's a business. And I think we have to stop looking at the concept as this is an investment. I think it's a business, just like other businesses got bailed out through COVID. Residential long-term tenants need to bail out. And that's why you'll see a lot of landlords getting themselves into short-term, because they don't have to go ahead and follow the RTA when it comes to short-term. So that's why they feel it's a safer bet, more work, but it's safer. And that's where you'll see a lot of properties have been, long terms have been escaping to. And hence the whys that we now have different policies, municipal policies, such as there are people in London fighting the short-term rent licensing that they're trying to push and play, or to prevent residents who don't live in London from doing short-term rentals. So short-term rentals are under fire now, and I'm telling you, the long-term rentals are going to be next. Housing is at the top of everyone's application of their campaign. It's going to be a popular thing that they're going to try to issue. I know that there's a bill from the NDP out right now who are trying to create a what would it be called, a list of all the landlords out there, just because there is landlords who have their business in a corporation. They want a public list of knowing who landlords are. And I'm not totally against it. I think we need to have a centralized list so that when there is rules and regulations being passed down, we all need to be aware of it. And, being able to inform other landlords as quickly as possible, so that the algorithm of Facebook or YouTube, or, just being able to try to call people from Kijiji to let them know what's happening. It would be nice to have a central location to know what's being thought of, so that we can have time to give our 2 cents in it. So it's definitely pay attention to what all the parties are doing. Sadly, they're playing party politics in the housing industry, and it's really having its effect on good landlords and good tenants. And then Tammy made a post. I'm like, you guys can see that. I'm not going to put it. Not all of our government officials. We have some really great ones that are really trying to work with small investors, big ones. But it is something that, it's sad to see that, they're afraid to meet with private investors because then they think the tenant activists are going to be, oh, you met with the landlords and this is what's going to go on. No, we're just trying to give some hardy solutions that could be adapted into the current housing community. But deep down, an overhaul needs to be done of the Residential Intensive Act and the Landlord and Tenant Board. Instead, they're looking at different ways, like if you can do an L10 application, so you can bring your previous tenant who moved out back to the Landlord and Tenant Board. It used to have to go to small claims court. Now the Landlord and Tenant Board is like, oh, you can bring them to us. Well, that's great if we can find them. So a centralized location in order to be able to find these tenants who move out would be great. And that's where it's almost like the way the driver's license. So you have to update your driver's license. I believe it's like 30 days since you moved. Now, if I can serve my tenant at Service Ontario, and that would be a valid form of being served, that would be something that we should be looking at, just so that landlords can have that opportunity, to potentially do some garnishment of wages. But luckily we do have frontlobby.com so that we're able to report the tenant's unpaid rent and utilities to Landlord Credit Bureau and Equifax without having a judgment or the tenant's consent. But you do need the tenant's consent if you want to report their good payment history. So if you have a tenant that you're wanting to help them grow and build their credit, and almost use it as a, hey, you got a fridge, a stove, dishwasher, and we can help build your credit. It definitely does that for your rental unit as well. But we do need to have a proper system, and it's been going decades and it's just getting worse. It's getting worse. So what we have to be able to do is be very supportive with one another. I know sometimes we don't agree in the group, but try to be very friendly with each other, because this is the only way that we're going to be able to combat this broken system in order to create a fair and balanced one. So if any of our elected officials are watching tonight, is that we need you to come to listen to the guest speakers that I have that are coming to talk about the Landlord and Tenant Board, the Residential Intensive Act, the municipal bylaws and policies, the way that government housing is currently ran, and also discussing housing programs. There's so many tweaks that can be done to all these different sectors that will encourage the supply, not just about getting the shovels into the ground. And we need to do it in a very fun atmosphere. So that's why we branded it with The Price is Right. We're going to have some games in between our panelists in order to really keep everybody alert, on their toes, learning, getting their brain working, so that we can explore these solutions together and then champion creating more advocates across Ontario and getting them to speak with their elected officials, to speak with the staff, the policy advisors, in order to make these necessary changes, or the housing crisis will get worse. You might see my post now, it's from housing crisis to housing chaos. And when you have students guys, living in shelters because they don't have enough housing, what are we doing? What are we paying our elected officials for? We have been failing our society on being able to provide these type of housing over just rules and regulations that could be easily changed. So we have to make sure that we are showing our support. I've been doing this for 12 years. I don't know how many more years I got, guys. I guess my 18-year-old is going to be taking over next. But I keep telling the elected officials the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing and expecting different results. So if I keep having these conferences and nothing is coming from it, but I do know that from our last conference, we did have Brian May, the MPP, or the MP. We had Belinda Carlio, she was the MPP. We had Jan Liggett, who was the city councilor at the time, and she's now running for mayor of the city of Cambridge. So I can't wait. I fingers crossed, this girl is the only thing that Cambridge has hopes for now. So if you're in the Cambridge area, please check out Jan Leggett and show your support to her. She's also going to be attending the conference as well. And we have many other candidates who are running all over Ontario coming to learn what it's really like with the landlords and the tenants, because this is not a landlord and tenant fight, guys. This is going to be the landlords and the tenants need to communicate their struggles and their solutions to the elected officials in order to create the balance, because it's been so off balance for quite some time. And this is why we have such a huge growing concern of our homelessness within our municipalities, and the concept that we can't even get 10,000 condos now off the ground based on the market changing, as well as our cost and maintenances, utilities. It's all connected to one another. So anyone got a crazy situation, or is everyone fine out there? You guys are no tenant situation, or do you need to text me anonymously so I can give you some help and some guidance? Toronto might have 81 properties and FP for tenants. What's NFP? I'm getting old now, guys. If you could tell me, Arthur, what NFP is, that would be awesome. So I'll put the link here to you guys in the details of the event that's going to be coming up October 1st. Want to make sure that everyone has their tickets in before the 15th. I have to let the hall know the food, so that if you have a choice between chicken and fish. So we want to make sure that everyone's having a good time and having a networking event after as well. So to take all this information that we're going to be able to learn together. And not only just based on the issues and the problems, we're going to be able to have our guest speakers. So this is the first time I'm like smiling now. I can't even get it out. So I actually have the CEO of Front Lobby, Zach Killam. He's going to be coming to this conference all the way down from Vancouver. We have some friends from Vancouver and BC coming as well. Samantha the Glass, she's going to teach you how to represent yourself at the landlord and tenant board and to highlight the most common mistakes. If everyone knows, you make that one small mistake, you're starting that process all over again. And again, we're going to go back into advocating for the concept that if there is minor mistakes, we're going to be able to try to get them addressed so that it doesn't throw out the application. And then we also have Sarah Larvey. She's going to do tenant screening. So I'm excited to be able to bring her to the conference in order for us to learn how to avoid problematic tenants. It's not everyone deserves a place to live, but when you have so much on the line, you need to make sure that you're getting the tenant screening process right. And in order to avoid these problem tenants, so that way you're not waiting 11 months before you actually have to evict a tenant. So making sure that we're giving you that education so that when you are taking the advocacy home, we're giving the education to protect you in order until we can get those changes, those policies changed in order to give us a little bit more footwork and a little bit more protection. So I want to make sure, and we have our sponsors. I can't tell you what it is, guys. I can't tell you what it is for our showcase. So we have Front Lobby and we have Rental Gauge. They're sponsoring our showcase price. So if you are getting your ticket now until I believe the 9th of September, you have an extra chance to win, to have your name put in the draw for these prizes at the conference. I'm so excited. It's like, I wish I wasn't even hosting this thing so I can win it. But we have 2 great prizes there. We also have Coffee and Mortgages. They're going to be sponsoring some prizes. They're also going to have a table there for if anyone has any questions about the mortgages. We have Athena Property Management. They are so lovely to be able to sponsor our cake. We have Ottawa Landlords Association. They're going to be sponsoring prizes for the event as well, so that everyone is. I'm not going to be Ellen DeGeneres. I can't be like that, but I am trying to give away as much prizes to our hardworking members who are helping so many landlords out there on a day-to-day basis. And I watch every single comment that is there. So I want to make sure we do a shout out there. We have Stilettos and Hammers. This is another fantastic real estate investment group for women in order to achieve your financial goals. And you also have Flex Space. that one you guys have to check out. I think we could be utilizing that a little bit more. So I'm going to give them an opportunity to be able to explain that a little bit more at the conference as well, or actually have them on a Facebook Live, because I think it's really going to help us become more professional and organized as landlords. And who else do we have? We're going to be able to have our cookies are going to be designed from a local baker here in town. So we want to give them a shout out. We have the Canadian Real Estate Channel coming to videotape the conference, so that all the information that we're saying, we're going to compile it and send it off to any elected officials that couldn't show up. But we encourage our elected officials to send a staff member to take notes if they can't show up at the conference. This is what we have to do in order to do it. I don't think a class action lawsuit is not going to work. I've been down that road, talked to many lawyers, and the best thing that they kept on telling us to do is continue to lobby the government as much as we possibly can and highlight their inefficiencies within what their system is doing and give them a better way. We already know the issues. They know the issues. So let's give them solutions in order to better protect themselves. So I want to be able to, do whatever I can. I'm only one person. I wish I can clone myself, but we do have, everyone who's on here, and being able to share Ontario Landlords Watch with their friends, invite them to the group. I am a little slow on getting everyone into the group. There is a waiting list, but if they're being invited in by you, then I usually can get them in a little bit quicker. Or if you have a friend that's waiting, just send me a message and I can get them into the group, because we've been building this now for many, many years, and been doing it quite often in order to make sure that landlords have a safe place in order to vent, to get some help and some assistance, and teach them the importance of advocating. If you're into, conferences that teach you how to grow your portfolio, or getting into JVs, getting into short-term rentals, that's why I'm lucky to have Erwin and Cherry from the Wealth Hacker Conference that's going to be coming up in November. So we're going to teach you how to prepare now and manage your property, and then you can jump over to their Wealth Hacker Conference in order to now figure out how to scale that portfolio that you have working. But they have been fantastic support throughout the years, and so we want to make sure that we give them a shout out as well. So I hope everyone seems like they don't have any questions and answers tonight. So if you do, just give me a call. I know it's hard to be put on the spot, and you don't want everyone knowing what your situation is. So everyone knows where to get me. If you actually talk to me on the phone, give me a like in the comments. That tells me how many people I've been able to serve. Not like McDonald's, how many people served. So just give me a like if I was able to help you. This is my first chill. I'm normally having a guest speaker, getting the experts. Now we're just preparing and trying to, it's almost like a wedding. This is really a wedding for these conferences that I host. I just want everyone to bond together, to help and to grow their network within that community. And that's what this conference is going to do. Being able to work. We have people from Toronto, Ottawa, Vancouver, BC, Oshawa, Kitchener, Hamilton, Catherine's, like the place of how many investors are coming from all over. And I appreciate every single one of you for helping me in this advocating journey that we've been on. But I think now's enough. I think we have to really put our feet in the ground and really understand what we want. We've given out reports. They have 20 issues. We need to narrow that down to 5, and those 5 need to be the biggest of changes that will really give us protection, not only for us as landlords, but our good tenants. So we really hope to highlight those at the conference in much detail. Sometimes when you're on Facebook Live trying to give these solutions, they tend to get a little scrambled, especially when you're looking at yourself talking. But this is me. So I hope everyone's enjoying the Ontario Landlords Watch group. Definitely, if you have any suggestions on things that you think that we haven't talked about, any type of recommendations, please give me an email at olwlandlords@gmail.com, and I would love to connect with you. This is about brainstorming. This is about communicating with as many different experts all over the province and other provinces to really help us set that dialogue for our elected officials, because it's not going to be hard for them to say no when it's happening in other provinces. So that's my little trick there. But just like the water billing, we've almost had that back at council, but now there's an election. So we've got to start all over again, which really sucks. But it does, it's starting, they're feeling the effects of this water billing policy. And that's how I got into the RTA and the LTB, is over water billing. And that water billing is now, as a result, it's now causing tenants to be evicted. It's causing landlords to not accept tenants just based on their family size or the concept of their income. And instead, we should put that back on the onus of the city and really open that dialogue back up for the landlords and tenants to really work a strong relationship to keep the cost of rent down, because it is rising. It is rising. We have maybe a one-bedroom unit in the newspaper is now going for 1,800 in Cambridge. This is going to be bad for everyone if we don't get a handle on how to adjust to these rent increases that are happening, the price of interest rates that are rising. Gas went up 23%. Contractors, the supplies, everything is now increasing, not including your taxes that have increased. So we really need to look at the bigger picture, and that's what we're hoping to do at the conference, and that's what we hope to do and always continue to do within the group, so that everyone has a deep understanding of what we need to do as landlords. And if the government, they can't keep building, managing, maintaining, and subsidizing government housing. We have thirsty investors who are ready to build, ready to manage, ready to maintain, but we need a proper justice system in order to deal with tenants who don't pay rent. That money does need to go back into the building and or into a savings so we can continue to keep investing. But if they keep restricting us, this is why you're going to see a decrease. And we call it like a mass exodus. And if you talk to any paralegal now, they're talking about the N12 application being very popular. Elected officials and the newspaper will be talking about rent eviction. And this is not the concept where, yes, if you're going to take out, a duplex in order to create 8 units, this is what you got to do. But we don't have that fixed term. We don't have that, okay, after 12 months, you're done. Let's get you out. And now I can plan for the renovations. It just goes month to month. So that's why these renovations would need to happen in order to create more supply. But a lot of these elected officials are not aware that the tenants are allowed to move back into the unit with their written consent that they want to be notified to move back in, and they have to move back into the same price. So if things continue to keep going, we're going to see a little bit more on cutting back on that maintenance work that these tenants need in their place to keep them safe, to keep them clean. So we really need to work together as all levels of government. I think that we have the National Housing Strategy. It's going on for 5 years now, guys. Not doing nothing. It hasn't it was their bread and butter, hopefully trying to get more supply and really having a dent into this housing crisis. Nothing happened. We have the province who created a housing task force. Not too sure what's happening there yet. Very slow and slow process. I know that they do want to encourage the municipalities to allow duplexes, triplexes on a single family zone property, which is great. But again, we go back into who wants to do it, who really wants to be a landlord, and also what's the time frame in getting the approval process. So we really want to cut that red tape when it comes down to trying to get this development off the ground, if we do have someone who's crazy enough to do it. But I can't really see myself flattening a building right now and paying for it at this price. So take that into consideration. And then the region, I found through my experience with dealing with the region, getting to know people who are employees and who are on contract, and then 2 years later, they're gone. And now we have a new person in trying to learn the issues, trying to think of a solution, and trying to implement that solution. So we do have some inefficiencies within our region. And then we have our municipalities, different policies, vacancy tax, landlord licensing, water billing, just the tax bracket of creating a 7th unit, not even to the 6th, not including the banking, so when you get into the banking, and having so many residential, or now it's commercial, there's so many different things that we have to do. Tammy said there's a bunch of towns who are now making landlords have separate meters for every utility for a triplex. Want to name those towns? That doesn't even sound like a normal town. Normally they're like, no, you have one meter. We want it that way so that they don't have to go and read it. And it's definitely a money grab. And that's why I was very shocked with the water billing, because they would get, a fee for each meter that was on the property, but we still get it anyways because, we have to do it. But what if we became the utility provider? That would be, and I thought about that. Buying the meter, we do the reading. Here's the billing for the water, and now here's the billing for our administration cost. Even down to some of our landlords are able to do that. Still, you can definitely be your own utility provider, but it comes into the gray area of, can we disconnect? And that's the bottom line. It's a service that's being used. If it's not being paid for, just like the hotels, if you don't pay for your hotel room, you're getting the boot. We just need to be able to guide the tenants who are in financial hardship to different government services that are helpful through their hardship situation, like Lutherwood, it's called in Cambridge, that helps them out with rent arrears. Sometimes they need an N4 application in order to show that it's going to be brought to the landlord and tenant board. But it's something that I like to ask my tenants, have you tried this? So when I do have to go to the landlord and tenant board, I can tell the landlord and tenant board I gave them documentation in order to help with rent relief, and also teach them about the portable housing benefit. So they might be able to get an extra $350 if approved by the government to get extra help on their portable housing benefit as well. And we just need to keep working that cycle, helping our tenants. This is a business. Our tenants are our customers. We need to do whatever we can to be very professional with it. But we do have to do more, and we need to show that we are connected. So I'm excited to have the Federation of Rental Housing Providers of Ontario coming to the conference as well. So they've had many interactions with our elected officials at the provincial level. They have advocated for the landlords, small and the big ones. So it's going to be nice to have all different voices on there. Even a real estate lawyer who's a tenant herself, having the same marching the same beat of our drum as well. So I'm excited to put this together. It's a lot of work. I think my wedding was easier. This is definitely harder, making sure that we get the message out to everyone. So please share the event with your network on your Facebook page and the groups as much as you can, because I don't know how much more we have, guys. We have to really get organized. These tenant groups are completely organized. We just have multiple different groups, and we're all doing our own thing, which is great. It's great to have multiple voices, but we can do better. And I think having it down in paper, having our thought process together in this massive think tank, being able to record it, to write it down, and then together we can now advocate in all areas of Ontario to our elected officials, no matter if they're blue, green, black, purple. I don't know what party colors we're going to come up with next, but we do have to do more. So I'm hoping to have a great afternoon. From 1 to 7:30 is going to be the event with all the information and our guest speakers. And from 7:30 till 9:30, it's going to be our networking event with a cash bar. Sorry, it's not a full wedding where it's open. I wish I could, but due to liability issues. So hopefully everyone gets to stick around and do some networking, because many great things come from these networking meetings and these conferences in order to make us a stronger pack. I don't want to be a lone wolf. So hopefully you'll join me on October 1st at the Portuguese Club here in Cambridge. I'll definitely post some stuff on the website regarding some hotel accommodations as everyone's looking for them. You will need some hotel accommodations to make sure that you're getting a nice one, and reach out to one another and try to and set this as a party. This is always it's like a party of why we started and that we've been growing for many, many years. And I want to thank everyone who has taken their time to talk with me and brainstorm with me and showed up at these meetings with our elected officials. And just know that we have many, many great things to do. We just need to work together and be able to celebrate the concept of Ontario Landlords Watch. Multiple landlords groups seem muddy the waters for landlords, confusing the election officials. Yeah, we have different ones. Some are very hostile, and some that are just very raw landlord. I've been there. I 4 years. I was raw landlords. They didn't really care. You just know today. I come from the family of tenants. My husband comes from the family of landlords. I'm trying to work that in between because it's getting difficult for all people, especially with the food prices going up. And when the food prices are going up, money's going to be taken away. That's obviously going to result into not having enough funds to pay for rent. So we're in for a battle. We're in for a battle. So we really need to start now in order to get that education, so that we can get the proper education to our elected officials and staff and policy advisors, because it's not just the MPP. It's people who are working behind the scenes as well. So making sure that people have that, oh, it's just an NDP, they don't care. Keep on them. They're there to try to protect our tenants. We're trying to protect tenants as well. But in order to protect our tenants, we need to protect our landlords. So I hope everyone is excited to advocate, because it's not going to get better by itself. I know that it's been great. I love when people are CCing me in their email that they're sending to their MPP. That's fantastic. Just keep going with this. Book a meeting with your elected official. They can meet with you. Usually on their Fridays is usually their days that they want to meet with their elected officials, and just highlight, we understand this is not going to be a one size fits all, because we do have people with more complex needs. But that's when we're going to dive deep into how housing, government housing, social housing is working, and how government programs can really help with creating that atmosphere to help all tenants involved, especially our seniors. When our seniors are inside of shelters right now, this is unacceptable. So we're giving our time, our education, our help, our years of dedicating into trying to create that fair and balanced housing system. They just need to listen, and hopefully they're able to take some of the stuff that we're going to be able to share with them and implement it very quickly. The winter is approaching, and we need to do much, much better. I won't take any more of your time. I want to thank you. I'm going to do another, just a laid back. So if you have any questions, I'm probably going to do it in probably next Friday. So if you have a situation where you're going through and you need some guidance on how to handle it, not so much about landlord and tenant board, send it to me at olwlandlords@gmail.com. I'll keep your name out of it, just so that we can kind of help other landlords learn from other people's experience. And that's what I think a lot of our landlords have been able to do through the group, is learn from other people's past mistakes and be able to amount to something bigger because of it. So definitely set me up, and we'll do next Friday at 8 o'clock, so that we can connect here once again. And I want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart, especially our sponsors who are there to support this endeavor, to really bring us together to create that system that is desperately needed for Ontario. And if you have some time, check out other provinces. Do me a favor, check out some provinces, see how they deal with damages, see how they deal with non-payment of rent. It's more of the concept of their lease. But let's keep the education. Education is key to running a successful rental business. So thank you so much, everyone. I'm gonna stop talking because I have a problem of not knowing when to stop talking. So I'm looking forward to having our next guests on here. We have a lineup that's going to be happening. So stay tuned to the Ontario Landlords Watch YouTube channel so you don't miss it. And then we'll see you at the conference. Take care, everyone. Bye.